They said I'd lost my mind. My wife told everyone I was dangerous, that I was losing touch with reality. They whispered it at church, at the hardware store, even in front of my daughter. But when you're branded as crazy, nobody listens when you finally tell the truth. They look at you with pity or fear. I learned to stop talking and start watching, because when everyone thinks you're insane, they never see you coming. She thought she'd buried me in lies, but I was digging my way out the whole damn time. My name's Robert Gaines, 58 years old. I built homes for 30 years, each one straighter and sturdier than the last. I used to say I put honesty into every wall I raised, because a man's work should outlive his mistakes. But the foundation of my own life turned out to be cracked long before I noticed. My wife, Linda, used to smile in that soft way women do when they're planning something you can't see. Back then I thought it was love. Now I know it was calculation. It started with whispers. I was at church one Sunday when the pastor's wife asked if I'd been feeling all right lately. Her tone was careful, too careful. A few days later, a client called to check in after hearing I'd been taking time off for my mental health. I hadn't missed a single job. I started noticing the looks, sympathetic, unsure. Linda was telling people I was going through something. At first I brushed it off. But then came the small traps. She'd misplace the car keys, then ask if I'd moved them. She'd pour 2 glasses of wine at night and tell me I'd finished both. I found my phone hidden in the garage once, recording. It had been there for hours, running on low battery. When I confronted her, she said she was worried I'd hurt myself. That night, I sat in the truck and stared at my hands. They were the same hands that built our home, that held her when her mother died, that raised our daughter. But now, to her, they were the hands of a madman. Weeks passed and things only got darker. She started documenting everything. Little notes she'd leave around the house, half hidden, as if she wanted me to find them. Robert shouted again. Robert forgot to eat breakfast. Robert refused his medication. Medication I didn't even take. I began to realize what she was doing. She was building a story. A paper trail. And every story needs an ending. One night I came home early. I heard her in the kitchen whispering. "He's slipping faster than I expected," she said. "By the time it happens, they'll believe anything." I froze. She was on the phone with someone. I couldn't hear who. "No, not yet," she whispered. "Soon it'll look natural, natural." That word stayed in my head for days. I stopped sleeping. Every sound felt like a setup. Every missing object, every strange phone call. It was all designed to push me toward the edge. And it worked. I started second-guessing myself, my own memory. Once I caught her smiling when I asked the same question twice in an hour. A slow, satisfied smile. That was when I realized she wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. She wanted me to break in front of everyone. The night it all snapped, she invited my daughter over. Said she wanted to help Dad get better. I didn't know there were others coming. Her brother, 2 neighbors, even a doctor. They surrounded me in my own living room. Linda started crying, saying I'd hit her last night, that I was hallucinating again. I didn't even know what she was talking about. My daughter looked terrified. The doctor nodded slowly and said I needed evaluation. Then I saw it, in Linda's eyes. That small flicker of triumph. The police arrived 30 minutes later. I was calm when they cuffed me. I didn't shout, didn't resist. I just looked at her and said one sentence, quiet enough for only her to hear. "You built this lie perfectly, but you forgot who taught you how to build." Because I wasn't done, not even close. They kept me in observation for 72 hours. Routine evaluation, they called it. I was locked in a pale room with a mattress that smelled of bleach, and a clock that ticked louder than my heartbeat. The psychiatrist asked questions like she already knew the answers. Do you feel people are conspiring against you? Do you often misplace things? Every word she spoke felt rehearsed, like someone had fed her a script. And I knew exactly who Linda came to visit once. She stood behind the glass window like I was a museum exhibit. She wore that same calm smile, the one people wear when they've already won. I asked her why she was doing this, but she only whispered, "Because you're sick, Robert." She turned and left before I could respond. That moment didn't break me. It built something new inside me, a stillness I hadn't felt in years. When they finally released me, I came home to a house that didn't feel like mine. She'd changed the locks on my office door. Half my tools were gone. Even the photos on the walls had changed. Pictures of her, of our daughter, but not me. It was like I'd been erased from my own life. My daughter wouldn't return my calls. I later learned Linda told her I'd been diagnosed with dementia and refused treatment. That lie burned more than the arrest. My little girl believed I was fading away. I spent those first nights sleeping in my truck again. But this time I wasn't lost. I was planning. A man like me, 58, quiet, invisible, that's what people underestimate. They think you fade when life turns on you. But you don't. You sharpen. You listen more carefully. You start noticing the cracks in their lies. The first thing I noticed was a number on our bank statement. Linda had moved nearly $40,000 out of our joint account, claimed it was for medical expenses. The second thing I noticed, our life insurance had been increased 2 months before my episode. She'd forged my signature. I confirmed it through the insurance office quietly. Didn't make a scene. Just smiled and thanked them for correcting the record. I needed proof. But Linda was careful. She kept everything locked away, hidden. Then I remembered something most people forget. I built this house. Every wall, every vent, every panel. I knew where she couldn't look because she didn't even know it existed. I set up a small camera behind the bookshelf in my old office. I hid a voice recorder under the drawer she never opened. And I waited for 2 weeks. I let her think she'd won. I stayed quiet, compliant. I acted confused, even forgetful. I let her believe the lie she'd built was holding. And in that time, I caught everything. The calls, the meetings, her whispering about next steps. But what broke the case open was one conversation, her and a man named Daniel. She told him I was close to cracking completely. She said the house would be hers soon, the assets liquidated, and then she'd be free. He laughed. She didn't. It was all there. Dates, plans, even how she wanted it to look like an accident next time. He still works with power tools, she said, laughing softly. All it takes is one mistake. I copied everything onto a flash drive. Every word, every sound. I backed it up in 3 places. One in my glove box, one in a bank deposit box, and one mailed to my lawyer, sealed and dated. I didn't want revenge that night. I wanted justice. But justice doesn't show up on its own. You have to build it, brick by brick. A week later, I called Linda to dinner. I told her I wanted to make peace. She looked cautious, but came anyway. I poured her wine, told her I'd been seeing a new doctor, that he thought I was improving. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen in months. And when she reached across the table, I could see it in her eyes. She thought she'd broken me completely. That's when I said softly, "You were right about one thing." She tilted her head, curious. I did lose my mind, but I found something sharper in its place. She frowned, confused, and I slid the flash drive across the table. Her face drained of color. "Every word you've said in this house for the last month," I told her, "is saved in 3 different places. Police will get one. My lawyer has another, and the third. Well, that's just insurance. She stood up fast, knocking her chair over. For the first time in a long time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not anger. Fear. The kind that comes when a plan collapses from the inside. She called me insane again, screamed that I was threatening her. But I didn't say another word. I just walked out. I slept better that night than I had in years. But revenge doesn't end when you expose a liar. It begins when you watch what they do after. And Linda, she wasn't done yet. I should have known she wouldn't go quietly. Women like Linda don't fall. They drag you down with them. The morning after I left that flash drive on the table, she went straight to the police. Claimed I'd threatened her life. Claimed I'd manufactured recordings to intimidate her. They came to my place to question me, but this time I was ready. I handed them my lawyer's contact information, along with certified documentation of everything. The real files, time-stamped, chain of custody intact. For once the lies bounced off me instead of burying me. Still, she didn't stop. She called my daughter, crying about how she was afraid I'd hurt her. My girl wouldn't answer my calls again. That cut deeper than anything. You can fight a woman's betrayal, but you can't fight your child's silence. I almost gave up then, sold the house, moved away, started over somewhere quiet. But then something inside me refused. You don't build your whole life from the ground up just to watch someone set fire to it. Weeks passed. Investigations were slow, as they always are, but Linda started slipping. People began to notice the cracks. One of her friends came to me quietly, told me Linda had been bragging about getting everything soon. Another man, a co-worker of Daniel, called me one night and said, "You don't know me, but you need to look into who your wife's been meeting." He didn't give a name, just an address. I drove there the next morning. A coffee shop across town. I sat in the corner, cap pulled low. And there she was, Linda, smiling, animated, talking to a man in a suit. He looked like he'd stepped out of a law commercial. They were too close for strangers, too calm for business. She slid him a folder. He flipped through papers, nodded, and shook her hand. I didn't need to hear a word. I knew what she was doing. I followed him after. Not long, just far enough to see him walk into a real estate office, my house. She was selling my damn house while the investigation was still open. She'd forged the signature again, using an old copy from the insurance documents. I waited until she left, then went home and opened my safe. I still had the original deed, and I still had the audio of her laughing about how easy it was to fake old signatures. That's when I realized what my revenge truly was. It wasn't about making her hurt. It was about stripping her power away, one lie at a time. I wasn't the man she married anymore. I wasn't soft. I wasn't trusting. I was methodical. I went public. Quietly. I sent the recordings and documents to one person who mattered more than the police, more than my lawyer, our daughter. But I didn't just send files. I sent her a message, recorded at my kitchen table. "Sweetheart, I know what your mother told you. I know what you've seen. But I built this home with my hands, and I built my name with my work. I don't need anyone to believe me. I just need you to see the truth for yourself." A week later, she called. Her voice was shaking. She'd listened. She'd heard her mother's voice, laughing about the crazy old man who still thought he could fight back. I heard the betrayal in my daughter's tone, not toward me, but toward the woman who raised her on lies. When Linda found out, she lost control. She stormed into my place one night, screaming, crying, begging, and threatening all at once. "You ruined me," she yelled. "You destroyed everything!" I looked at her and said, "No, Linda, You did that all by yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She lunged at me, tried to slap me, but I stepped back. Her hand missed and hit the counter instead. She winced, clutching her wrist. For a moment the whole world went quiet, and then she broke, collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I didn't move. Didn't comfort her. I just said quietly, "Now you know what it feels like to be unheard." That was the last time I saw her. 2 months later, the police called. Fraud, falsified medical records, insurance forgery, they had enough to charge her. The woman who called me crazy was now standing in a courtroom, shaking as her lies were read aloud. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just watched, because justice isn't a celebration, it's a silence that finally feels right. But even as I watched her fall, there was one thing left she didn't know. And that's the part I saved for the end. When the trial was over, I didn't stay to watch her sentence. I'd seen enough of cold rooms and lies spoken under oath. I walked out before the verdict came, because I already knew it. What I didn't know was what came after. What a man does when the storm that's been tearing his life apart finally dies down. You'd think there'd be peace, but peace doesn't come easy when you've been fighting ghosts that look like love. I went back to the house, my house, the one I built with my own hands. The air was heavy with dust and silence. Her perfume still lingered faintly in the curtains, like a haunting, the kind that stays even after the body's gone. I walked from room to room, touching the walls, the door frames, the nail heads in the beams, reminders of the man I was before I let her inside my head, before she made me doubt what I saw with my own eyes. The neighbors waved again. People smiled when I walked into the diner. No one called me crazy anymore. But the thing about reputation is, once it's cracked, it never really fits the same when you put it back together. I kept to myself, worked small jobs, fixed fences, repaired barns, stayed quiet. Most days that quiet felt like peace. Other days it felt like a punishment. One morning my daughter came to visit. She didn't say much when she stepped inside, just looked around, like she was seeing the truth for the first time, not in files or recordings, but in the air of the place. She put her arms around me and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you." I told her she didn't have to be. "Your mother fooled everyone," I said, "including me." We sat in silence for a long while. No tears, no big apologies, just the kind of quiet that feels like the end of a long storm. Later that week I got a letter in the mail, her handwriting. Linda's, postmarked from the County Correctional Center. I held it for a long time before opening it. Inside were only a few lines. "You were right about me. But you should know, I never hated you. I hated what you made me feel. Small. No signature. No goodbye. Just that I burned it in the sink. Watched the ink curl and blacken until the words vanished into ash. Then I realized something I'd never admitted, even to myself. Revenge doesn't heal you. It doesn't give back what was taken. It just evens the ground beneath your feet so you can stand again. The last thing I did was rebuild the porch steps, the same ones she used to sit on in summer evenings when we still believed in forever. I didn't rebuild them for her. I rebuilt them because they were mine, because they'd been broken too long. As I hammered in the final nail, I looked out toward the woods where I used to sit in the truck, alone, wondering if I'd really gone mad. And for the first time, the world felt solid again. The lies were gone. The noise was gone. Just the sound of wind through the trees and the slow, steady breath of a man who finally remembered who he was. I wasn't crazy. I was just surrounded by people who needed me to be, and now they're all gone.